Thom Hartmann here on the news. You need to know this. Despite protests from the left and the right, the president will not veto the highly controversial National Defense Authorization Act, which includes indefinite detention provisions. However, Attorney General Eric Holder told the Wall Street Journal that the president intends to issue a signing statement when he approves the new law. Presidents often use signing statements to justify ignoring certain aspects of a law passed by Congress. In fact, George W. Bush issued 161 signing statements during his presidency, indicating that he would just ignore laws he didn't like. Whether or not it's an appropriate use of the powers of the White House is up for debate. But when it comes to preserving our Constitution and remembering that, unlike our enemies, we don't indefinitely detain people, a signing statement by the president, I suppose, is the next best thing behind an outright veto. When a poor guy robs a rich guy, he goes to prison. But when the mostly white rich guys screw over poor minorities, no one goes to jail at all. Bailed out Bank of America will pay a $335 million settlement to the federal government after it was found that a subsidiary of the bank, Countrywide Financial, quote, systematically discriminated against minority home buyers at the peak of the U.S. housing bubble, end quote. The banksters charged blacks and Latinos much higher interest rates on homes than they did to whites of similar financial backgrounds. The investigation found that minorities were far more often conned into subprime exploding home mortgages, the stuff responsible for the housing bubble and crash and the foreclosure crisis. So now Bank of America will dish out a couple $100 million to make their crime go away. Not one executive will go to jail for robbing poor people. It's good to be rich in America. In the best of the rest of the news, Karl Rove is the latest prominent conservative to call on House Republicans to extend the Senate's 2-month payroll tax cut extension. Appearing on GOP TV, Rove said Boehner and the Tea Party should, quote, vote the 2-month extension and get out of town. They've lost the optics on it. You know the Republican Party has lost its way when Karl Rove sounds like the reasonable guy in the room. The Ron Paul libertarian zombies are dealing with their first scandal. The media is zeroing in on a slew of old Ron Paul newsletters sent in the 1980s and 90s that were soaked in racism and bigotry. Some of the claims made in the Ron Paul newsletters include a conspiracy that blacks were trying to infect whites with HIV, detailed instructions on how to shoot and kill black teenagers, and arguments that malicious gays were infecting us with AIDS. Yesterday, Ron Paul lost his cool and walked out of an interview with CNN when asked about the newsletters bearing his name. Paul claims he didn't know what was in them, which could be true, but demonstrates a gross lack of responsibility. Either that or he really did believe that stuff. Neither bodes well for a Ron Paul presidency. The U.S. auto industry is making a comeback. 1 million more American cars are expected to be sold this year than last, and once again, more people are buying American cars than foreign cars in the United States. Also, car manufacturers plan to hire an additional 167,000 U.S. workers over the next few years. Back in 2009, President Obama rescued the auto industry from bankruptcy despite Republicans protesting and arguing that the car company should fail and their millions of unionized workers should get screwed out of their pensions. Now, a few years later, we know who was right. You shouldn't blame the 1% for not caring about the plight of the rest of us. They just don't know any better. New research out of the University of California, Berkeley suggests that wealthy people are far less empathetic than poor people. Based on 3 experiments on over 300 ethnically diverse young adults, lower-class individuals, economically, felt greater levels of compassion when watching emotionally charged videos and were better able to pick up distress signals during mock interviews than were rich people. As Jennifer Steller, the lead author of the study, noted, it's not that the upper class are cold-hearted. They may just not be as adept at recognizing the cues and signals of suffering because they haven't had to deal with it themselves in their lives. Thanks to Reaganomics, the very wealthy have created a me society for themselves in America. We need to bring back the we society for everybody. Days after the Japanese prime minister insisted that the nuclear crisis of Fukushima was resolved, that government is now saying it may take up to 40 years to decommission that crumbling radioactive nuclear plant. But the nuclear crisis minister admitted yesterday that it could take much longer, noting that decommissioning 3 melted-down reactors and spent fuel pools was an unprecedented project. Over the next 3 years, TEPCO plans to remove the fuel rods from their pools on top of each reactor, and then over the next 25 years, will remove the melted fuel in the reactor cores, even though no one really knows at this point what condition that melted gunk in the reactors is in. But even after Fukushima is adequately contained, the people of Japan and the rest of the world will feel the effects of this disaster for thousands of years, or however long it takes that radioactive material around the world to decay. Crazy alert, bad Santa. Lower Manhattan is still reeling from an invasion of drunken Santas last week. As part of the annual SantaCon event, thousands of people dressed as Santa hit the bars in Lower Manhattan with one goal in mind: to get as drunk as possible and spread the holiday cheer. Though spreading the holiday cheer may not be as pleasant as it sounds, according to one witness describing this year's SantaCon, there was public urination, public vomiting all over the place, open containers, and no police. No police? Now we know how Occupy Wall Street can get the NYPD to ignore them. Just dress like Santa. Occupy Christmas. And that's the way it is today, Thursday, December 22nd, 2011. Happy holidays. I'm Thom Hartmann on the news.